Hello, Paul. Now we're meeting for a usual informal, casual meeting, conversation, colloquium.
And who knows where it'll go.
And well, we trust the logos. Now, the occasion for this, the formal occasion, is the article soon to appear on Vogelin View that carries the title Law and Natural Right in the Gospels, John 9, the parable of the blind man. Now, that article, at least upon a first reading, left you perplexed. It wasn't clear to you what I was up to, what is at stake. And I should note that the idea of explaining John 9, and so the story of the blind man, came in the context of a dialogue, a correspondence that I recently had with a biblical scholar of Anglican extraction, shall we say, or persuasion. And he objects to my work in general because he considers it to be too Greek. Now, this has to do with his understanding of the relation between the Bible or the Hebrews, but even Christianity and philosophy, the language of the Greeks. He was trained by Straussians, but he does not go along with Strauss ultimately because, I mean, as an Anglican, he thinks Strauss was wrong, and just about all Straussians are completely wrong because they
Wrong about what?
They dismiss the Bible. They lose that tension between Athens and Jerusalem. And
Strauss doesn't dismiss the Bible.
Excuse me?
Strauss doesn't dismiss the Bible.
Right. However, he kind of does for him, in the respect that ultimately he lives a philosophical life and he has chosen the philosophical life for himself. And so, you know, he knows that the Bible is not really, the way to go. However, he does retain some of that tension. Okay, he is not decisive. Thus, in the article, the 19.
I wouldn't put it that way, but
in the 1957 article,
because I mean Strauss is explicit. Ultimately the religious point of view wins the argument, so that the philosophical way of life is ultimately a choice. It's a choice that's maybe imposed on some people, but it's an attitude which its adherents can't really are not ultimately responsible for. It's just sort of in the nature of things that some people will have that attitude.
Let me say this: that it is to many it is not clear that what you said is the case. I should also note that I think there's a problem when we say that, well, philosophy is a choice. This problem is related to.
I said a choice that the people aren't exactly responsible for. I mean, that's how it's sort of in the nature of some people to have that kind of attitude. You know, some people just can't believe. Other people can't help believing.
Okay. But okay, fine. Let me try to bring this back on the original track. Just by speaking of believing, yes, already we take a modern path. I think that the problem here.
I could have used Strauss. I could have used Straussian terms.
No, you don't. I'm not trying to be
obedient love.
No. Yeah, well, trust.
Obedient love is the phrase that Strauss used.
Fine, but trust. Yes, but in what does that mean? Again, obedience is not of the essence. There is something clearly that transcends obedience. And again, how does Strauss posit this binomial? How does he understand these two positions, Athens and Jerusalem, the Bible, and how does he present that those two poles? Is his presentation his last word? As a Socratic, he is sometimes, he's almost aphoretic. Yeah, I mean, he is open. He leaves it there. He sets the stage. Very often he speaks about philosophy, and what he means is modern understandings, modern perceptions of philosophy. And he says, okay, well, here's for the philosophers, and here are the religious people. Here are the theologians. On the other hand, when he looks at Maimonides, he says, well, he's not a philosopher and he's not a theologian. Okay? And he seems to suggest that he's following in his footsteps sometimes. So neither nor. Why? Yeah. What is he really up to? What is his whole project, as it were?
I'll just mention that that's not at all my impression, but go ahead.
That he follows in Maimonides' footsteps?
Well, I don't get the impression at all that he's unclear about Maimonides not being a philosopher.
Oh no, he says that. He says that literally. He says no. He was not a philosopher. He did not understand himself. He does not present himself as a philosopher. Neither does Strauss present himself as a philosopher. He says, "I'm not a philosopher. I'm a scholar." Now, some people take that to be ironic, but no. He doesn't really care about what people call him. He was a social scientist. He doesn't care.
That's not the issue at all.
Right, and yet, if you don't take that seriously, then you're prone to misunderstand what he's saying, because
I take it seriously, but if we take it seriously, then we can't say that Strauss is in advocating the philosophical position, because if we take his claim seriously that he's just a scholar.
No, but again, what I mean by that is that taking that seriously is that that suggests that the terms he adopts are, shall we say, exoteric, not because he's trying to cheat people or speak tongue in cheek, but because he sees that when you speak in public, you're speaking to crowds of, for the most part, of scoundrels, hypocrites, knaves. This is not new. I mean, the Gospels corroborate, right? So he knows that, and Saint Augustine says, most people are driven by this libido dominandi, their upmanship. They're just going to pick up your word and try to beat you in an argument. He knows what the situation is. So then why does he even bother speaking in public? I mean, the wise man should shut up, shouldn't he? Otherwise, he wouldn't be a wise man. And then again, he could be going in the desert and live the life of a monk somewhere lost in solitude. And yet there is a monastic dimension to everyone's life, but yet we are in the agora, in the city. So how do we speak in public, knowing that that people in general, especially the erudites, let's not be mistaken about this. He's not looking down on the unwashed masses who don't have a degree from Yale and Harvard. He says, especially those people, especially the authorities, the intellectuals will lash at your throat and try to destroy you if they suspect that you're up to something that could bring them under a bad light.
All right. So
yeah. So when he speaks, these terms that he adopts are adopted for us to come out of our current situation. As I said in our last colloquium, all terms that that we adopt in our discourse have been tainted.
All right, all right. You don't need to justify all that.
Yeah.
What's the you get to see that the way you want to see it, and maybe you're right. But I just
the way
I want to know
see
what I mean, look, maybe you're right, Marco. But
these are suggestions. It's not that.
yeah, I don't want to get into the weeds about those things. I'd like
Yeah.
to know. I'd like to know
What this article is about.
Right, right.
Right. So now it starts as looking at this, a reading, a close reading. For my interlocutor challenged me, says, this is about the will of God, and God wills what people consider to be evil. The poor guy is a blind man. Why is he blind by nature? Well, it's not because, of course, the account tells us not because of his parents. In other words, his environment. It's not an inherited thing. It's not him. It wasn't his fault.
All right. So now I get it. Now I get it. You're addressing this Anglican who said that God willed that this guy could be blind so that this miracle could take place, so that people would then believe, and so on. That's what you're addressing.
Yeah, and I say this at the beginning, right? So what the implication is, what is the implication? Well, his objection is to these Christians today who think that God is good and goody-goody, and he always does good things, and he's not responsible for evil. And he's saying, no. Look at Isaiah. He says, bara, he creates evil. Ra. He creates it. In the past.
What about God being mysterious? What about Job?
Yeah, well, this is the whole point. So we don't know why he creates evil, and therefore,
we call it evil.
Yes, yes.
The paths of the Lord are unfathomable.
Yeah, but for us, it's evil, and it's.
Yeah, but
horrible things happen, and he makes good out of it, right?
Well, even good. It's good in our view. I mean, we don't know what's good for us. Isn't the divine is ultimately mysterious. We look at it from our human perspective and our human advantage and so on. And what's that compared to whatever God's got going on with the whole cosmos?
Except for the fact that it's kind of irrelevant to our practical lives, what this cosmos is going, what is going on.
Except that sure, it may be irrelevant to our personal lives, but it's not irrelevant to God's plan for the cosmos.
That's fine. And yet the Bible and Isaiah speaks about good and evil. So it's the Bible is full of this. We're not going beyond good and evil. Okay, God may be beyond in some mysterious way, but we sure the heck aren't going beyond good and evil. We're stuck with good.
But once we get into this, then okay, Isaiah and everything you like, but then there's Job, and there's God speaking from the storm, Leviathan, and what are you?
Well, for one thing, Job, it is clear from the Job account that God is not responsible for those evils. Yes.
No, it's just not. It's.
He does not will the evils.
Well, I don't. It's not that. It's that. What's clear is that Job isn't responsible by having done something bad. These things that are visited on him are not a result of his guilt, but they're part of something so gigantic that we can't even begin to fathom it. God doesn't say Job isn't responsible for what he did, and I'm not responsible for his children dying and all his flocks dying off. That's not what's said in the book.
Do you see anywhere a suggestion, an opening to the very possibility that God wills the evils?
It's not a question of it being willed, because even the concept of will. I mean, what's the meaning coming out of the whirlwind is how can you even, what is this to even pretend to begin to understand what these things are? This is so, I am so powerful, I am so huge, I am so unfathomable, I'm so beyond your comprehension that your little picayune accusations of Job for being responsible for what's happened to him. I mean, you have no idea what's going on, and I don't see it as anywhere God saying, that there's not an answer is not given to why Job has suffered these things, except, and this goes in the sense of your article, that through this experience of Job having these misfortunes and his friends coming and accusing him and God speaking to them from the whirlwind, through that some light is cast on our situation. And that, if I think I get something like that out of your argument, though I'm not sure I follow the steps you take to get there. It's because it's in human terms, we certainly can be responsible for things, and other things are mysterious, and everything's going to fall apart. The idea that Job is telling us that our conceptions, our human conceptions of good and evil, and
are limited.
Well, more than limited. They're super limited.
Yes. Okay. Well, okay. And
they make things in human terms, but they make, it's even effrontery to attribute anything of this to God. I mean, he's overwhelmingly, it's Leviathan speaking out of the storm,
right?
Which are images of overwhelming power,
right? So there is an incommensurability. The mystery of God. Who the heck knows what He has in mind? Of course, it would be impious to suppose that we have access to. We have,
Well, he says, he says as much. How can you think to understand? How presumptive, he says to the friends of Job. You're presuming. How dare you presume?
Who says this?
Well, I mean, I can't remember the exact words, but God says to the friends.
Okay. Nevertheless, there is a preface to this story, right? The preface being that there was an issue, a metaphysical issue, and
the preface being that terrible misfortunes befall Job, and his friends feel that he is ultimately responsible for these things because he's somehow offended God.
Right. But do we not know as readers that this is a test for Job?
Well, okay, but
that's important, yeah?
Yeah, except that, right, I mean, okay, but what I'm saying is that God's reply to all this is, don't presume to understand.
But we're told, however, that this is a test.
Well, okay, but that's a different issue. I mean,
this does not mean that's a very important issue, because that already tells us that he did not want to. It was not his wish to impart all this pain on an innocent man.
Well, if it's a test, then it was his wish. But
no, he allowed it to happen.
Well, what does that mean?
But still,
you're making a fine distinction, which if God's so powerful, allowing something to happen, it's like in law, you're an accessory to the murderer because you allowed it to happen. You didn't say anything. You could have done something, but you didn't.
Yes, but let us say, okay, let us say there is a devil there, and the devil says, I'm gonna get your guy.
But God allowed the devil. I mean, the devil said to God, I let me loose on the world, and you'll see. And God
Yeah.
said, okay, we'll see.
We'll see.
So God allowed the devil to be the king of the world.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between the allowance of that and willing it.
Well,
you
okay,
are
but,
assuming.
well, all right, but
Wait,
what?
I'll tell you what the big difference is. What does it state? You seem to be assuming that God could have avoided evil in the world. Are you?
No, I'm not assuming that. God could have created man and put him in the Garden of Eden and not put the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the garden. And then he could never have had a relationship of true friends with man. God, yes, God could have, God could have had the same relationship with man that he had with the animals, but no, he made man in his own image.
Yes, but it was no. Yeah, he's not made. This made is not very clear. Yeah.
Clear enough to me.
No, it's not clear enough to me. He's not made in the same way that the animals are made. First of all, okay.
But I'm just saying that
it is not made that way.
He made a whole lot of animals, and then
but that has nothing to do with this is not the way in this not in the in the same sense that he make if we assuming we have to stick to the make Adam. Indeed, what I have suggested elsewhere is that the Christian sources want to tell us, communicate, convey the truth about that making when they say that the Christos, the Son of Man, is not made at all. He is generated.
Well, all right. But what it seems to me that what you're getting at is this business that you insist on in the article, that man is the presence of God in the world, or something. I'm not sure how you formulate it, and I'm all for that, and I think I understand what you mean.
That's one of the
facets.
I
don't know where you. I mean, maybe there is mileage in it. I don't see where there's mileage in it by talking about responsibility or not responsible or willing or not willing. The situation is what it is.
No, okay, look, Paul, you asked, well, what's the relation between this and creatio ex nihilo, creation from nothing? Very simple. God does not create evil. Now, there are people, theologians today, who say, no, he actually says it. In Isaiah, we have bara. Bara means create. And I referred back to some authors who argue, and it's very convincing to me when I read the Bible that bara here signifies, as Strauss has suggested, diaresis, which is a separation. So this is in conformity with John, who refers to the Christos, and so the Son of Man, as logos. This logos, and of course there's a whole long, very old Platonic tradition that emphasizes that the primary act is through the logos. So what does it mean that God creates at the beginning? It means that he is setting aside in words, he's designating, he's naming, he is the legislator, he is naming. Now, when he names, he brings those things to life, as it were. He is shaping them in the act of naming them. And how does he name? Through the logos, of course. So this first bara, okay, Elohim, God is, how do you want to understand this creation? If we want to stick to the word creation, it is not creatio ex nihilo. He has simply designated what I call, I believe, the ontoepistemic place of things. So this is the place, ontoepistemic. In other words, the place where they really are, and they are intelligible in that place because it's their proper place. If you take a real chef and you take him into I don't know, a laundromat, you won't understand, and you'll see him working there. He doesn't know what he's doing. You won't understand that he's a real chef, that he's in reality is a chef. In order to understand what he really is, you have to see him in the kitchen, and that's where you're going to see him as he really is. He's a real chef. In order to understand things, you have to see them in their proper place. That proper place is designated by God. The human being must be engaged in activities that are proper to the human being for you to be able to see and discern his humanity. If the human being is behaving like a gorilla, like a hyena, like a pig, you won't be able to discern him as a human being. He has to be within that ontoepistemic horizon for you to be able to, so he has to be engaged in activities that are proper to the human being for you to discern him as a human being. Okay, that's what it was all about. So what is God doing? He is the legislator. He is governing. He is not creating in the literal sense, I should say the modern sense, as if, there were nothing there. And so he's creating evil according to these people. And I am objecting to it. And I'm saying that the story or the parable, as I am suggesting, of the Gospels, or the gospel being the parable. So the message of the story is that God is not all powerful in the literal sense. So we go to the sources and we see Saint Augustine. What does Saint Augustine say? And I mean, I could pull up a whole array of sources, but Saint Augustine is not any old folk on the margins. If you go to
Marco, I'm not the guy you're arguing against. I'm the guy who's trying to understand what you're
okay,
to
yeah,
say.
that's fine. That's fine. So you have a sense of what's going on. So Saint Augustine, Thomas Aquinas will say the same thing. He's certainly not going to argue again against Augustine on the question of evil or omnipotence. And what is omnipotence? Omnipotence is to be able to do what you want. Who? To have the power to do what you want. It doesn't mean you do whatever the heck, you have infinite power, and that, in the sense that everything goes, you can do anything. It just means that you do what you want. But what do you want? This has been misunderstood, his definition. And I'm explaining this. I'm just giving you the short version here. In the article, there's more. What does he want? The garden. He is a legislator, and he can legislate. He is the perfect legislator. He is perfectly capable of legislating, of doing what he does, and he does it well. That does not mean that he wants the absurd. The point of that is that he is placing boundaries on power. Power is inherently infinite, potentia. It's just capacity. Pure capacity is infinite. The will is a determination. It is by its own nature finite. You want something. You don't want anything. If you say you want anything, it means you want nothing, right? He is placing a limit on power. In other words, he is cutting off, setting apart something out of a situation where there is no limits, no boundaries. And indeed, paradiso, the paradise is the garden that has boundaries. So what is he doing in Genesis, in the Bereshit, in the heading, literally? He is setting boundaries. He is not creating matter. Now, we do have in the Hebrew tradition, in the Talmud, etc., we do have lots of debates on this. And, there is absolutely no consensus that we should accept the creatio ex nihilo. Indeed, the medieval general stance was that there was no such thing.
What was there?
Well, it comes very close to what we find in Plato. And this is Strauss's gentle suggestion. When he refers to diairesis, etc., etc., is his gentle suggestion.
Referring to what?
Diairesis is this separation that you find in it's a Greek term for this kind of setting apart, this division, in two. Yeah. Okay, these modern theologians, my correspondent, he knows all about diairesis, yes, but he has not stepped down to stoop down, as it were.
So what's the Platonic idea, and what's the difference between the Platonic idea and the biblical idea?
But that is well known. That is standard business, except for the fact that I think that
what is that standard business?
one has been inflated and one has been deflated. In other words, both have been
misunderstood. Well, give it to me straight then.
The demiurge, right? This is the standard version. This is
I want the real version. I know the standard version.
Okay, well, but in any case, even if you consider him more seriously, Plato is suggesting that the God has not created matter. He has not created evil. He is intervening not in the literal sense of as a creator, but as an order. Okay? And on this reading of John 9, which is I don't know of any more careful reading of John 9 than the one I have offered, and more precise, although of course there will have people who will hate it because it's too Greek. They assume that the Greek is an element alien to the Hebrew.
Never mind that. Just
okay, because this is really the key, assuming that the two are alien to each other. God is there as a governor, as an order, as a prince, and I have references to certain texts that could help think about this. He is not a king. Sure, he's a king. Everybody knows he's a king, but what does that mean? The king does not create the people. He is there to function as a king. So, what does that tell us about evil? It tells us that evil will linger on as a possibility, within the undifferentiated universe, as it were. But that also God's job, as it were, is not to resolve the problem of evil, not in the way moderns believe he might. He can resolve it, but only in a sense that was appreciated in ages bygone. For example, you could say that there is the kingdom of God that is free from evil. But where is that? Well, the kingdom of God, by definition, is, such a huge thing. I'm speaking in very plain terms, that it really is not, and I want to tie into your observations. It's not commensurate to the particularities of our kingdoms. In other words, in our kingdoms, you can never have a situation without evil. But on a great divine scale, you could say that overall, he has resolved the problem of evil as this perfect legislator, this perfect king or prince.
Yeah, the kingdom of heaven, sure.
Yes, but you look at the last quote. I translated a passage from Giambattista Vico from the Latin, where he's at the end of one of his books, De Antiquissima. He refers to the supposition, what I was getting at just now, namely that I will add something here to the account, that even though he doesn't refer to paradise, paradise would have to be totality, a totality that has resolved within itself the problem of evil. There's no more evil because it's been resolved, because now finally you can see, it's manifest that evil has been made good use of. Yes? So it's been resolved in its end, the good end.
It's been made good use of.
Yes. You know, the traditional idea is that, yes, there is evil in the world, but God will make good use of it. And finally, there will be paradise. So it'll be in some way, in some divine, mysterious ways, it will be resolved. The problem will be resolved. And so the lamb go with the lion and so forth. The point being that evil will be vanquished. Yes? Yes? But in the account that I'm giving, the suggestion, which is strengthened by Vico's passage, last footnote, is that this paradise, this kingdom in which all of these problems are resolved, is none other than totality. You could consider it the whole universe. But that this universe is a kind of infinite thing. Well, infinity always has boundaries, though. It is a kind of dream. You know, you have this modern story, the never-ending story, yeah, where the world is coming to an end because there's the nothing that is taking over, and it's, you know, it's at the boundaries, at the, you know, these borders, it's falling apart. The world is falling apart. But all you need to restore it is the imagination, right, of a child, and then it comes back to life again, the world, right? But if this world is a kind of dream in the mind of God, you could say that it can be at once infinite in principle and finite, as it must be insofar as it is within the mind of God. Now, how this relates to the problem of evil at this point is somewhat plain. Namely, well, if you want to get rid of evil, the only place that you can see that you got rid of evil is totality. Within the total picture, evil disappears. And somehow, you know, this God is all about, he is the ruler of the universe. You see. And the paradise, where is paradise? It is the totality. But it's a totality that is really beyond our world.
Well, what about matter?
What is matter? Matter is hyle, silva. It is wild stuff. It is wilderness. It is that which is not governed. But if we say that God is the ruler and governor of totality, then matter is resolved within this totality because it is perfectly well governed within the realm of totality, this paradise that is beyond our imagination. Beyond our imagination.
Isn't this veering us towards some kind of Calvinism?
No, in what way?
Well, in the sense that everything is resolved. In other words,
but look, it is standard business to say that there is a realm in which the problems are resolved. That's called paradise. No question about that. It's just a matter of understanding that it's not as simple-minded as people ordinarily
all right,
think.
okay. Look, Marco, I'm following as best I can, but given given this thing of yours, which I don't fully understand, but given that, what then do you do with that in, say, in an ordinary theological sense? I mean, how, what is the preacher supposed to say from the pulpit about that?
Well, let us look at the John 9. Why is the guy blind, naturally blind? Why do we have problems? Well, first of all, God does not will these problems. Where do these problems come from? They're in the very nature of things. In our world, which is a world governed by people, and I'm just referring to I'm not going to cite it verbatim, but these are terms from that parable, or if you like, from that story of John 9. He refers to the kingdom. Okay, but in the place that is governed by people, there will necessarily be evil. So what are we going to do? Are we going to try to vanquish evil once and for all? Are we going to just try to pray and wait for God to get rid of evil? Because, okay, we can wait till paradise, but let us not fool ourselves into believing that, somehow this solves our problems. We have to deal with that evil as a lingering permanent presence in the human world. The elimination of evil is also the elimination of man. This doesn't mean that man is evil, but that wherever there's man, there's going to be strife, and that the strife is a symptom of there being evil. Okay? And God cannot do anything about it in this world. He cannot do anything about it because he is not omnipotent in the modern sense of the term. He is omnipotent in the medieval sense of the term. For, as Dante has it right, as a repository of medieval wisdom, God rules over the heavens. He does not rule in this world.
Well, Jesus says that very clearly.
Yes, I say Dante's repository of medieval wisdom.
I mean, Jesus, well before the medieval time.
Well, medieval, I mean from the.
No, I'm not saying it's not medieval wisdom. I'm just saying.
I would say that.
You don't need medieval wisdom to have read that Jesus says, "My Father's kingdom is not of this world."
Yes, what I mean is that Jesus inaugurates medieval wisdom.
Well, all right, but you can call it medieval wisdom, but you don't need to call it medieval wisdom.
No, you can call it lollipops.
No, I mean, but because it's right out of Jesus' mouth.
Yes, but I would say that, well, it's right out of the authors of the Gospels, right out of the mouth of the Gospels authors, to be precise.
But they're quoting what Jesus said.
Well, that is what they say.
And I believe them.
You're certainly entitled to believe them. And somebody could answer, I believe in Santa Claus too. But you can believe whatever you want. The question is what the truth is. And we do know that that St. Paul's letters were written before the Gospels that we have, and that these Gospels were written in the light of those letters. And we do know that St. Paul knew Jesus very intimately, but that he had never met him in the flesh. And that these letters were written a good time after the supposed death of Jesus. So I don't know.
What does it matter? What does it matter?
It does not matter to me because I'm not a literalist. I'm a medievalist.
It doesn't matter when they were written. What Jesus said and did happened before St. Paul wrote his letters. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, how do you know? You believe it.
Because the
first evidence that we have of this is St. Paul.
It's presented that way.
Yeah, by St. Paul, because all the sources that we have go back to St. Paul. So you can't bypass him. All the sources go back to St. Paul.
I'm not trying to bypass St.
No,
Paul.
okay, but you can't say that, oh, okay.
I'm just saying that they present Jesus as saying that.
Yeah.
I mean, even St. Paul is well before. I'm not trying to put down the Middle Ages by any means.
No, that's not my point. Yeah, I hear you. But what I'm suggesting is that
these things are written in the New Testament.
Yes.
1,000 years before the medieval, or 500 years before the Middle Ages.
What do you mean?
Well, I have no objection.
What do you mean by hundreds of years? I mean, first of all, do we not? The Middle Ages is a big word, yeah. But
the Middle Ages was not the 2nd century. It's not the 3rd century.
The
Middle Ages, it starts at if you're going to even put the beginning of the Middle Ages at the 5th century, that's even a little bit early. The 6th century, okay.
Why? I mean,
because you still have the Roman Empire, which is functioning smoothly.
Ooh, but
well, come on, the 3rd century then. I mean, you're not going to tell me that in the 3rd century the Roman Empire wasn't functioning smoothly.
3rd century is one thing, but smoothly, I don't know, because the Roman Empire was a mess.
Functioning, it was still up. It was still up and running.
The
Middle Ages. The Middle Ages followed the Roman Empire. I mean, this is a sterile argument. I'm just.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out.
Yeah, I hear you, and I acknowledge readily, Paul, that when I spoke about Middle Ages, I did this in a provocative manner, because in fact,
and again, I have no objection to that.
It is what I mean by Middle Ages. What I mean by Middle Ages is, broadly speaking, the Christian era. Okay, for me, that's what it is.
Which didn't start in the time of Jesus. I mean,
Yes. Well, Constantine and so forth. I mean, clearly.
All right, but Constantine is what? It's 3rd century. It's 4th century.
As soon as Rome converts to Christianity. Okay?
All right, fine. And when that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in Paul's lifetime.
Oh wait, that is not exactly correct. Before you see it manifested on a large scale, it begins happening in Paul. So what I said, that he is the beginning of the Middle Ages.
There's churches around, but all right. I mean, if you want to say that, fine.
Yes, because they have to. I mean, Paul, it takes.
These are questions of definition. I mean, okay, if you want to say if you want to say that the Middle Ages is the Christian era, and you want to say that the Christian era begins with the life of Jesus, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. But there's a good reason to say this, incidentally.
No, I'm not casting any doubt on that possibility either. I'm just.
And again, Middle Ages is was a term that came up way later, because they didn't call themselves middle of anything.
Of course.
Yeah. But what I'm suggesting is that I think it's very helpful to our understanding to see that.
All right.
Rome is the old Rome, the pagan Rome begins. It is already dead from inside by the time Paul comes along. And
all right. I mean, okay. I mean, you can say that.
But they're begging. It begs for Christianity.
Well, all right, fine. But then, okay, then there's a lot of, then you have to rearrange a whole lot of terms, which is fine.
Yeah.
But just be ready for that, because
yes.
The categories that have been in use for hundreds and hundreds of years, I mean, maybe they're wrong, but maybe they're not.
Well, we have to rethink them. We have to rethink and people rethink these things. Look.
That's all right. No, I'm not saying. I'm not trying to disqualify you. I'm just.
That's what I've done some work on. For example, Petrarca.
I mean, I myself, I have redefined in painting and the term modernism, and so I'm not allergic to that.
Yeah. Okay, so we understand each other at that point.
But still, I mean, I'm going up against a tradition that's only, that's less than a century old, and that's pretty, it's not super solid or anything. Whereas you're going up against a tradition that's got over 1,000 years behind it.
I gotta build muscles here.
Yeah, if you're an ox, maybe you can do it. But
yeah, no, okay. There have been fractures in that tradition, that rhetorical tradition, but it does definitely, I think, easily make sense. Yeah, what I am saying is actually can be corroborated by our sources even up to the Renaissance.
no, all right. I mean, I'm not. I just wanted
That's fine. But now, if getting back to this point, what I am suggesting is that well, we were actually at the point where you say, well, Paul, but what about Jesus? And I suggested, well, you can believe that Jesus did this and that, or you can approach this, but you don't. I mean, if you're really a philosophical mind, that is to say, not moved by prejudice and not mean, but open to truth, just naively open to truth, then
I'm pretty mean.
you mean?
No.
But if I mean anybody, then I would say, okay, be careful though when you speak in public, maybe because people are mean, and you have to really make it nice and clear, and take things literally in some cases. Otherwise, they will laugh at you, just as they did at Jesus in the story. Now, maybe Cervantes was right.
About what? The windmills?
About Christianity. Don Quixote is a metaphor for Christianity, for Jesus. He is the unarmed, innocuous dream. But it is ennobling, and it awakens people from within, as poetry does. And when Dante says that he is awakening the language, that the dead poetry he has left behind, and now may it resurrect. He knows perfectly well that he is speaking about the living word, the logos, but he calls it poesia. And when he presents himself in scenes of purgatory, and people are singing the hymns and hallelujah, Jesus is coming, and then imagine a theater, a setting, or set up in a theater, in a building, and we had this scene where everybody's singing, waiting for Jesus to come in, and then Dante comes in. Oh, shoot. What happened? And yet, let us be clear, Dante does not want to be, or does not claim to be, Jesus. He may not mention his name often, but he certainly does not want to be another Jesus. There's only one. But how are we to understand this universal? Well, in a poetic setting, what does that mean? What is the setting that is proper to our understanding? Bingo. How is man supposed to understand things if not in a poetic setting? Well, as a human being, which is to say as a pagan man, as an ignorant, naive, good-hearted man, how am I to understand these things? In what context? How am I to understand? Well, in the poetic sense, in a way, he'll say, and well, the Gospels are parables, and that there are parables within the parable. What are they the parable about? Is Jesus a character in a parable that is retold by people who do not claim to be God? Because as you know, these are Gospels according to Luke, according to Matthew. Who are these people? You know that at the beginning there were so many stories. Our modern super scholars, critical scholarship tells us that there were many of these competing accounts, and then they simplified it and they brought them down to 4. Why did they keep 4? Why 4? Why not 5? Why not 3? Certainly plurality helps us understand that there's not only one, which is to say that it's not the Quran that comes directly from God. There are accounts. That is to say that the poetic element is integral to them. How do we know about Jesus? From these accounts. What is more, these accounts are based on the letters, or in any case, they're written in the light of the letters of Paul. And you know perfectly well what Paul tells us about his acquaintance with Jesus. I am definitely not trying to say or suggest or invite people to think that Jesus was an illusion. What I am saying, however, is that to take a literal stance about this is to end up in big trouble today, because, you know, to be a bit facetious in my formulation, the bones don't match.
Well, except that Matthew, Mark, and John were disciples.
No, this is, I mean, if you look at, the bones don't match. Do you know what I mean by that? Critical scholarship readily acknowledges that these are simply name tags. There are so many of these accounts that were circulating, and they were produced by scholars. They sure the heck weren't fishermen. They knew their Torah quite well.
Well, I think you're going to get into real trouble with the population of the world, not because they don't like what you're saying.
They'll think I'm what?
No, they don't care about you, but they're if look, Marco, again, maybe you're right, but I accept that in spite of the scholarship, that Matthew, Mark, and John were disciples of Jesus, and
that's fine.
And I think if you don't have that,
what about the bones?
What about the bones?
Yeah.
Well, I don't accept that scholarship. You know, they'll pretty soon they'll discover some other lost sea scroll, and it'll turn out that all their scholarship is
okay.
Is
what if it turns out that these were scholars? Obviously, they find that there's so many resonances they could not have written without being highly literate in the Torah. That these, however, were being Greek texts were.
Look, you know,
shows close familiarity with the Platonic tradition.
I'm trying to make a simple point. I mean, who knows what they'll discover? You know, I don't go along with it because I accept these things at face value, and
that's not a fundamentalist.
That's not important. What I'm trying to suggest to you is that if those things by the church are not taken at face value, then I don't think the church can stand up.
Yes, there is a sense in which they can be taken face value as long as people are not.
I mean, if you want to be a philosopher,
don't show the bones. But they've already shown the bones. They've already shown the bones.
Well, I mean, you're convinced by this because you know.
No, I'm not convinced by the bones. I'm not convinced by the bones. I'm just saying I don't care about the bones. I don't give a hoot about where they were written, frankly. The point is, however, that the people have been shown the bones. and that once the what is it, the
I don't think
radicals,
the people. I don't think. I mean, if what you mean is literary scholarship that shows that such and such a text was blah blah blah, I don't think that has been shown. I
uh,
think that
yeah,
I think that to the extent that Christianity is it is a vital living thing in the hearts of people, it's
eh,
because
no, I don't think it is. It is decrepit.
to the extent
Yeah, but
that
in
it
very
is.
little extent.
Okay, but among people, I mean, I would be one of them.
Yes,
My
but
wife Genevieve would be one of them. I would be one of them.
mhm.
There's a lot of people in Africa. You know, as you know, France is covered in African priests who were converted and taught by colonial priests in the before the war and so on, and so that there's
Yes,
an
but
awful lot of
yes, but are we modern? Where are the people who have not been tainted by modern
well,
prejudices?
I'm one of them. I'm one of them. Look, but I'm not. Okay, look. I'm just listening to you, Marco.
We're
So
talking about,
no,
I'm open to
so,
one person.
but wait, but my questions. I've got two questions. I've got first of all, it's a challenge. What I just said is a challenge to you. I mean, what's going to happen to the church if that's going to become the basis? But the other thing that I don't understand is what, or you presented what seems to me to be a philosophical understanding of, is a Platonic understanding, if you like, of the phenomenon of Christianity, and how is it different from, where is the difference between Christianity and Platonism? Where is the
Oh,
difference between religion and philosophy?
yes. Well, this is both
Not,
questions.
not the stupid difference, not the but the down deep real difference.
Um, there is for the writers of the Gospels and for the whole tradition. I mean, you go the Greek Orthodox Christian tradition and deep difference. Are you out of your mind?
So
Uh,
for you,
for
so
the
for
early
you,
Christians, for goodness sake, Socrates
okay,
and Virgil were prophets of Christianity. What
okay,
deep
all right,
difference?
all right, but Marco, that's fine. I'm just trying to find out what you think. So for you, there
The,
is not a difference.
no, there's no deep difference. What the heck does that mean, deep difference? What
Okay,
I can tell you is one thing.
because so
Today,
and
mm,
also for you, in spite of everything that Strauss says about Jerusalem and Athens, there's no deep difference. There's just sort of a superficial difference.
no, it's not in spite of what he said, because he's speaking about the Hebrews and Plato. But what is more, he is not telling you that there is no fundamental, mysterious agreement. He is simply telling you that we, in order to understand things properly, to begin understanding, to begin to think about problems, we want to identify these two poles, which is not something new. They've been doing it for hundreds of years, identifying these two poles, and that is something that we have lost.
Except except that except that you're pointing out that ultimately the two poles don't exist.
No, I'm simply no. I could explain that there is Athens and Jerusalem and Athens, but it has to be understood. There's no way out of it other than thinking. You have to struggle and think about these problems. And
No,
I can. You
that's
asked me,
fine.
look, Paul. You asked me a simple question. How does the church stand? And I can tell you one very simple thing: the church stands or falls on the simplicity of mind of people, and I mean it in a good sense. As soon as people start asking questions and trying to be so smart, like all this critical scholarship nonsense. Um, as soon as they start trying to be smart, in other words, modern, the church can no longer stand unless it faces the bones.
And what would that mean?
It means finding a rationalism that is more valiant than modern rationalism.
No,
They can account for modern rationalism and respond to it and show its inadequacies in rational terms.
well, Jordan Peterson takes a brave stab at that, just as Jung takes a brave stab at that.
But they're failures. They're simply reifying. That is not in the least adequate. They are relying on the premises of modern rationalism.
What
they want to be scientific. That already should, give you pause.
Well, it gives me pause. But what is that going to sound like? I mean, what are you going to say to the simple souls, such as myself?
Fine.
Because I'm one of the simple souls.
Stay away from evil.
Well, I mean,
you know what we mean.
But why should I stay away from evil when there's no baby Jesus?
I didn't say there's no baby Jesus.
Well,
no, I didn't say there's no baby Jesus. But if you want to think about what that means, that there is baby Jesus, then you have to be pure of heart. If you want to understand what it means, you have to be pure of heart. Don't forget, Paul, that this story about literalism is a modern piece of garbage that begins.
Well, I mean, you're the one who's using the word literalism. I never use the word literalism. I'm just saying that I take the Bible at face value.
Well, no,
that's all I said.
You cannot unless you're a modern. Look, if you want to be very naive.
What do you mean? Of course I can take it at face. It has nothing to do with being modern. You open the Bible. There's Genesis. You get to the New Testament. There's the Gospel of St. Luke, and with the three kings, and there it is. There it is.
Yeah, no, but you're playing now. I think you're playing, virtually playing dumb there, unless you.
Oh no, I'm not playing dumb. You ought to know that I'm a sophisticated person.
What I mean by this, Paul, if you will allow, is that in ages bygone, of course there were farmers, of course there were shepherds, of course there are people who go to church and they listen. They're all struck by awe and inspired and they're shameful.
I'm not talking about tricking stupid people. I'm talking about me.
Well, why do you call them stupid?
The three kings. They were following the star.
Well, I have a video on this.
Well, all right, but it's just.
Did you ever look at it? Did you ever consider did I have it? I have it in French. I have a French and Italian version.
These things.
These things have meaning. This is the point.
I'm not saying they don't have meaning. Obviously, I'm not saying they don't have meaning, but I'm saying that unless, well, all right.
They have meaning. If you look, I give you three options, okay? Either you're a simple person, a shepherd who accepts things, but it's never in a literal. It's not that there can be. You cannot take refuge in the face value, because the face value is open.
It's not a question of taking refuge. It's not being closed to the deeper sense of these things. Obviously, if a person is born who turns out to be the actual Son of God, and
what does that mean?
Well, he's curing blind people. What
does it mean?
Raising the dead.
What does it mean?
I mean, of course, there's a lot to think about, but it starts with God actually becoming a man in a certain time, in a certain place.
What is time? What is place? If you're really simple, you don't ask these questions. You don't set that up. It's a story. It's just, there's no distinction between history and poetry for these folks, okay? we're living in a
No,
kind of dream. It's a divine dream. So let's not import stuff from the moderns. There's no such thing as in the
that's not
historical
that's not a
context.
modern thing. I mean,
The
you have
historical
something.
Jesus. Where is the historical Jesus? He does not exist. He
Well,
does
that
not, he never existed, the historical Jesus. That's a bunch of baloney, because the historical as such is a modern invention. It presupposes that there is a historical context. What the hell is that?
well,
That's
I mean, Herodotus and Thucydides lived before Jesus was born, and so did Polybius.
after.
Polybius?
After.
Well,
Jesus, Virgil, let me be provocative here. Virgil lived after Dante. Can you imagine what that could mean?
Well, look, yes, I can, Marco, because I live every day with people who've been dead for centuries, and these things that happened hundreds
You
of
come
years ago.
after, or before.
Well, I mean, I understand the sense in which the sense in which time in history. I mean, particularly, I mean, I accuse to me it's Hegelian and Heideggerian, where history and time has this generates sense. But there was history and historical realities before Hegel and Heidegger got crazy ideas.
No, but yes, but it's not what is meant today. Historia is an account. It's a story.
But then again, you can't accuse me of having this modern mindset. I mean, you don't have it, and maybe I don't have it.
Well, if you're appealing to the historical Jesus.
Well, but I don't want to use those words. I just open the Bible and there it is, on such and such a.
There is a story. Fine. So we agree.
You're calling it a story.
It is a story.
All right, but it's a story that to me is true.
Ooh, but I didn't say it wasn't true.
Well, all right, but you're defining true in a way that I don't accept.
Maybe you accept a modern way by osmosis.
Well, I'm, all right. You're going to call me a modernist and a fundamentalist, but I can't help it. It's just I don't think that's fair. And I think
I don't want to call.
Of course, there have been sophisticated people. I mean, I became a Catholic. I've seen all the artwork and all the symbology and all this stuff. I've spent hours talking to monks, and it's not like I'm. But I can tell you, the monks at Salem, they were very excited when Benedict XVI wrote Jesus of Nazareth, because the whole point of the book Jesus of Nazareth is that it's an actual person who actually lived.
Look, actual.
That's the message of that. That's the message of that title.
But you're still taking the meaning of words for granted. Well, actual. What does actual mean for the medievals?
All right, Marco. I get it. I understand your position.
Look at the level of meaning. There's a level of meaning. Yeah, levels of meaning.
All right, Marco. I get what you're saying. And I think that you're going to have a very rough road to hoe. Taking that line, and I think you'll find a lot of agreement.
You will find me here.
I'll tell you about my brother-in-law, my wife's husband. Was the head of French military atomic research. He's the French Edward Teller. He's the guy who gave France the hydrogen bomb. He's an engineer.
That's wonderful.
And,
And then
and
he converted to Christianity?
No, he was always a Christian.
Yeah, I hear about these.
Wait a minute, listen to the story.
Okay.
And he was a Christian, and he was always going around because he got around a lot, and so he was always able to meet all kinds of priests and bishops and so on. And whenever he would meet a priest or a bishop, he would interrogate them, and then he'd bring these stories back, and he would ask them about the credo. And do you believe? And he'd cite points of the credo, the resurrection of the flesh and blah blah blah. And then
whatever
they would always say,
means.
well, yes, well, it's symbolical, it's a story, it has a meaning, blah blah blah.
Who said
and
this?
He would the bishops and the priests, in other words. And the moral of the story was that there was very few bishops who were actual believers the way he was.
Yes. Now, and this was a nuclear what? Was a nuclear what?
So I mean, that's
let me ask you something, Paul.
So, the point is
about him.
The French church has completely fallen apart.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, now.
I mean, not because of that. Because it wasn't before Vatican II that they got rid of the not the symbolic reference, where you could be a Christian by believing that it was just a symbol. In other words, the psychologist or the whatever you want to call it approach. Because then you also have the historical approach. But the medieval approach, they didn't bother asking, where is the historical Jesus? Why did the medievals not ask that question? Because they were dumb? Wrong answer. Because they were evil and they were just faking it? No, that's a very nasty minded and ill-spirited answer. Because
Marco, you're not talking to me about those things. I mean, I don't think that way. I mean, they just took it and then they went into the depths of it. I mean, that's how I am. Except that but they're starting out from something that's all right.
Yes, okay, Paul. They're starting from the story, and nobody's asking. Now, when they ask, what is a true story? Well, Lucian, the ancient, Lucian, he has this, true story. And it's
I mean, Marco, I hear you. I get it.
What does it mean, true? It is a big question. All right. I haven't said it, and I'm not going to solve the problem here.
That sounds awfully modern, loosey goosey to me. What is truth? I mean, that's what Pilate said.
No. Well, no, Paul, you're completely wrong. It is not a modern question. The moderns destroy the question. And number two, Pontius Pilate is there to show the story about Pontius Pilate. Is there to tell us that not that the question is not important, but that he dismisses the question. He is asking the question in a rhetorical manner. He's not waiting for an answer. That is why Christianity does not care to ask that question, because it knows that most people out there are absolute scoundrels, and they will be, when they're faced with that question, they will be as dismissive as Pontius Pilatus. Okay? Pontius Pilate. Christianity is for the sheep, for the lamb. Most people should be simple, as Lao Tzu reminds us. That is not dismissive of people. It doesn't mean that people should be stupid. It means that first we need to recover simplicity. Once you recover a simplicity that does not even bother distinguishing between a tale and and a true tale, I don't know what you want to, where the distinction is that you want to draw. And certainly people who have not distinguished between scientific facts, Machiavellian scientific facts, and figures of speech, because there's no such real distinction, not for the human being, we will have a collapse of the church. You want to recover the church? Fine. You need to get back to that simplicity. Falling short of that simplicity, but how the heck are you going to get back to that simplicity where we're already from A to Z assuming things that the medievals would never have assumed? And for good reasons. The reasons that were known by some people, not by all.
Well, the fundamentalists,
they fail completely. Look at these people, fundamentalists, like your brother-in-law, saying garbage.
No, my brother-in-law, you can't call him a fundamentalist. But
well, look at what these Christians do. Okay, they're split. How in the world are they going to? They live two lives. How are they going to account for harmonize the scientific?
Well, what I want to say to you is that, and
their beliefs.
This modern materialist scientific thing.
How do they get them together?
This modern scientific thing has driven certain kinds of people into what has been labeled fundamentalism, and I think I understand that, and I sympathize with it. I mean, it's obviously they get themselves into, they tie themselves up into knots, trying to justify that the world is flat and so on.
No, yeah, but you don't mean. I don't mean that, fundamentalist. I mean, you're right. You can go that extreme, but there's a step back, and most Christians are Protestants in that way.
They do that because they've been provoked into it by this modern thing, and my heart goes out to them.
Yes.
My feeling is that basically I'm on their side.
Yes.
I can see where it doesn't, where they're going way too far, but I can see why they're doing it, and I sympathize with the reasons they're in a very clumsy way. They're trying to protect something essential.
They want to be really orthodox.
Well, it's not that they want to be orthodox. They're clinging to the essential.
They want to be orthodox.
Well, I don't think that's what it is.
Well, maybe there's we don't agree on the term.
There's all kinds of people. People are atheists and people are religious for all kinds of.
Look, they're literalists. Yes, they're literalists.
Well, everything. I mean, every single kind of thing that a person can think or do can be thought or done for hypocritical or evil reasons. I mean, we can't deal with that. I mean, I'm talking about the underlying motivations of people who are doing whatever it is or thinking whatever it is sincerely. I can't. Charlatans. I mean, they're tools of the devil, and what can you say? But
I'm not saying that there's something evil about this.
It's not the fundamentalists.
They take refuge. They take refuge.
Well, yes, they're taking a certain kind of refuge, but it's not. It's not. You can't just sum it up by saying that they want to be orthodox. They're clinging to something essential. They're clinging to something that's.
No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're not clinging to something essential. They're clinging to the letter. They claim that letter is essential, but that is fake. That is not a medieval attitude.
I'm not saying it's a medieval attitude. I'm not saying
it is fake. It is a modern thing. It is a product of modernity.
Yes, they're clinging to the letter because they've been driven. There's this attitude about reality and facts and science and so on.
And they take refuge in this new letter.
They're backed up against the wall by this situation, which has polluted the whole atmosphere around it and hampered their own thinking. But by doing that, they're taking a stand that if I had to choose between them and the scientists, I choose them. I'm yes.
Okay.
Fundamentally, if you like, I'm on their side.
Yeah, I
Okay,
cannot say that I'm on their side,
I-
but if I had to choose, I too would have to say yes. I would have to go there too, if I had to choose.
and just
But
just
it's
because
I don't
just
I don't have to make
because
that choice.
but well, it might come to that.
No.
And just because their discourse is confused by the whole intellectual soup in which we live, doesn't mean that you know that 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 fundamentally their hearts aren't in the right place.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
They want to love a real person.
What's that?
Well, that's the
Well,
Christianity. Christianity. The thing about Christianity is that, I mean, and with Judaism too, is that it's personal.
Well,
God speaks to Abraham.
Start from your family. Love your children. The children love their parents. That's real people. I don't see the issue with that. There's real people. You want to love somebody real? Love your neighbor.
No, all right. I mean, if you're reproaching them with that, then
well, I'm not reproaching. I'm just saying that what is the big deal? And if they want to love somebody real, sure. But what I'm interested in this is this. Wait.
Because Jesus has been the whole Christian message, the whole way it's presented. Get rid of the statues, get rid of the paintings, get rid of the stories, get rid of everything, and all you have is love everybody and let all the migrants in. This is the thing. Whereas before they were looking at a beautiful thing, beautiful things were happening, they were participating, and Jesus was born on Christmas, and he was resurrected at Easter, and on Good Friday he was, blah blah, all these things,
and there was a mystery. There was a mystery.
Well, there's a mystery. There was a mystery, but in year zero, in Bethlehem, etc. That makes it, and Marco, that makes it even more mysterious.
No, wait. Year zero.
To me, if it's reduced to a story, it stops being mysterious. For me.
No, well, that's because I think I would say that if given that proposition, reduced to a story, I mean, what does that mean? You're assuming.
Well, because it's there is not a real person at a real time and place. And
what makes you think that the story is not real?
Nothing, because I accept the Bible at face value. I take it for what it says. It
still seems to me.
In such and such a time, it's specified. In such and such a time, in the time of King Herod, in the time, when Pontius Pilate was the proconsul and blah blah blah, and in a certain place and a certain time, such and such happened. Certain people did certain things.
But you're looking at it from the distance.
Well, I'm taking their account. I'm accepting their account.
And yet you live in a world that you call historical.
I don't call it. I never called anything historical.
You are your objection. If there's an objection, no. Come on, your objection.
No, I mean you're no. Look, I mean I never said historical. I mean, look I said at a certain time in a certain place, and okay, and then
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, you've got a problem with it, but I don't.
No, I don't have a problem with the story.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
I do not. I said I do not. I do not have a problem with the story. It seemed to me, and I speak in the past, it seemed to me that you were objecting to my calling it a story, a mythos. It is a special mythos.
No, I mean, no.
It is a mythos.
It's an account of something that happened.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Oh, come on.
I don't. No.
I'm saying a very simple thing. It's
no,
right now, there's something that's happening. I'm sitting here in France. You're sitting in Florida.
What is the context of that happening? What is the context of that happening?
I don't know. We're right at this moment. You and I are talking to each other. That's happening.
Yes, in what
It's happening.
context?
It's happening here and now.
No, no. In what context?
I don't know what context. This is what's happening to me.
If I tell you that the story of Jesus happened in the context of the mythos, okay, what is the context of our happening, so to speak, here?
Yeah, that's Marco. That's too sophisticated for me. This is just
No,
what is. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. When we go to school today, yes, we say Napoleon did this, and before Napoleon, there came the other guy, and so forth and so on. Yes? What is the context of this? Well, we call that commonly history. Do we not? Do you not say the Egyptians did?
I already mentioned to you that before Jesus was born, they already had that. They had chronicles from way long ago. I mean, the Egyptians had chronicles.
Chronicles is one thing.
Chronicles is one thing happening after another.
Let me give you an example of how our perception is distorted by our habits that are peculiar to modern man. We're used to thinking, and this is in the aftermath, if you like, or in the light of Christianity, we are used to thinking that today, okay, we're in the year 2021. Then we go back, and it's AD, or actually Common Era now they call it, right? AD or BC, before Christ. And so we go on mathematically, we count millions of years. We go back to the dinosaurs, millions, billions of years. It's all very scientific. And then, in this context, we say that Jesus was born in the year 0. We believe. We're going to make a big concession, because if you want to be religious, okay, we're going to cut a little piece of your life, and we set it aside for your being religious. But belief or non-belief, the facts are those. We're going from 2021 back to billions and billions of years. There's no evading this issue that the medievals were not faced with. The medievals, because when the medievals started from 0,
the Romans kept time. I mean, the Egyptians kept time.
Not the way we do.
But yes, they did. They counted years.
Not the way we do. Read.
Thucydides talks about this in the 3rd year of the war. In the 4th year of the war, such and such happened.
Yes. But that's not the way we mean it.
Well, I don't know. It seems to me that the way I think about time is exactly how Herodotus and Thucydides think about it.
I am saying that all of our conception of time has been tainted by modern prejudices.
Well, maybe in the case of some people, but not in my case.
I mean,
when I read Thucydides, I don't have any problem in seeing the thing exactly the way he did. And I certainly don't accept the Heideggerian thing.
I don't
accept that time determines being.
No, I didn't say that.
I do think that the sun is going around the earth, and every time it happens 365 times or whatever, that's a year, and so on, and the seasons follow one another. And
that's, I don't know if it's around, or in any case, it goes up and down. But yes.
It's asleep right now.
What I meant was, I meant two things. When I say that our understanding of time, I'm going to try to come up with either an article or a video on Phaedrus, Phaedrus, yeah.
Phaedrus.
Yeah, he has this a lovely short piece on time.
He who?
Phaedrus, the Roman poet.
Oh! I thought you were talking about Plato.
No, although you could say he's a Platonist in some sense, in some important sense. But and I use that as a good platform at some point for my daughter.
Look, Marco,
if we look at their conception of time, I've proposed in articles, I've elaborated on this, and even on this bankruptcy of evolutionism that I'm going to be coming up with.
Right, but I'm always saying this. Mm-hmm. We live in eternity. I mean, that's how I feel about it. There are all sorts of things that people and stuff that happened centuries and centuries ago, but that are part of my present because they're in my heart and they're in my mind.
Yes.
And so we live in eternity, but we also live in time. And this is the thing.
We don't live in time. That proposition is modern.
I'm sorry. This is the thing.
No, we live between time and eternity. We do not live in time. The flesh lives in time.
We're in both of them, and it's paradoxical, and it's
this is a modern proposition. Flag.
I've never heard any modern talk about how we're living both in time and in eternity. Nobody says that. There's nothing modern.
Yes, okay, but that is almost a metaphor. In other words, you're split between the two. Now,
I'm not. It's not a question of being split between the two. It's just that both things are going on simultaneously, and you can't get away from it. I mean, if I'm thinking about Fragonard all day, and and there are brushstrokes right in front of me, and it's all part of my present. But he's been dead for a certain number of years, and those years are real.
What I'm suggesting is that is just at best a provisional way of speaking.
Well, I mean, okay, maybe
it is just as saying there's another provisional way of speaking. We have a mind.
But collapsing it down to one thing, and
no, I'm not collapsing it onto anything. I'm just saying that here's another provisional way of speaking. We have a mind and we have a body. That is another provisional way of speaking. But this is cases. This is drawers. It is inadequate. Fundamentally inadequate, most notably in the light of what is going on today.
But you
can't leave it at that.
Back in 800 BC, when there was the War of Troy, and Hector got killed, there was his body, but his mind was not there anymore. I mean, it's a distinction. It's when you're alive, your mind and your body are together, and in certain ways they are. I mean, for instance, pain, our relationship to pain. It's life is made up of, and then there's pain in the soul and pain in the body, and we can have all different kinds of reactions to it.
Yeah, but this is not.
It's not monolithic. It's all these things at once, and that's what makes
It's philosophically inadequate. All I'm telling you is that those are not the only two. Those two alternatives are not the only.
No, I'm not. I don't know about. I've never said it's the only two, but I mean, it's just I don't see. I don't see. You saying that because I think that a person was actually born at a certain time and place, therefore it's a modern conception. I don't think that's.
I didn't quite say that. I said that there are in time.
You can make that stick. You can't make that stick.
Paul, when I said that they're not in time. We're not in time. When you say in time, that is as if
Well, we're in one way we're not in time, and in another way we are in time.
Well, what I'm telling you is that when the very proposition we live in time is modern. And
in one way we do, and Thucydides wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, he talks about it. Such and such a battle happened in the second year.
It doesn't mean in time, Paul. I'm afraid you're wrong.
time. He's talking
No,
about time.
he's talking about years, and years are sort of signposts, you know. What do you call
Okay, then years, but one year follows another, and you can't go back to the previous year. I mean, you know, if we get caught up in particular words and certain shadings that the
What
words
I
can
mean, look. What I mean is that there is a modern, as everything here today, as I said, but there is a modern conception of time. Now, the word tempus existed in Latin. However, chronos, yeah?
Well,
However,
sure,
it has
There,
these terms. Well, hold on.
that conception of time that goes along, first of all, with materialism, and then that goes along with these Heideggerian concepts. Okay, but that's not my conception of it. And you should, you know, and you're saying that, but it isn't true.
Okay, I will ask you something.
I mean, you know, I don't.
What comes first? Can I ask you something?
I don't think that my way of accepting the Bible is any different from the medieval way of accepting the Bible.
Well, I don't know about that, because the objections. Okay, you can protest
me of that at all.
You can protest, but I am saying that your objections suggest otherwise. Nevertheless, if I were, you know, without it turning into some kind of a strange guessing game, you know, if I were to ask you under normal circumstances, you know, does the present come from the past or the future? Where does the present come from?
You know, these are you know, okay, that's all fun, but to me, it's sophomoric word games, and we have an experience.
What is your experience of life?
Well, you know, I can use different words, and then you're gonna complain about such and such a word, and you're gonna say, you know, well, that's modern, you know.
Okay, you can tell me that a child comes from the parents. But we live in a world of abstractions, you see.
Well, in one way we do. In another way, we live in a world of non-abstractions, of things that are concrete.
Yeah,
you know, when a rock hits you on the head, it's not abstract.
Yeah. But when we consider the rock, we consider it as an...
Well, then as soon as you consider the rock, it becomes an abstraction.
But okay, but then we're back at square one. There's,
well, all right, you know, but
there is lightning. There is a lightning bolt, okay? And that is a figure of speech. But it is unescapable for us to live in figures of speech. Outside of the figures of speech, there is nothing. Nothing that can be talked about. We live in figures of speech, and as long as we do not accept that, as long as we keep thinking, okay, I'm going to go beyond the figures of speech, then we are modern. And the moderns have developed that habit by erroneously reading Christianity, because Christianity seemed, at least to them, and seemed to some, to suggest that we can go beyond the figures of speech. Christianity was supposed to give the true story, not the historical story, not the scientific story, the true story. The old mythoi were left behind as false. There's the pseudoi, they're false, pseudo. The true one, and there it's aletheia, the true one is the Christian one. We have a very modern habit today to dismiss thinking about these terms and to take them for granted. The ancients spoke about them. They don't tell you that you live in time. They tell you you live in the year so and so. But this year is understood in poetic terms, not in, you know, the moderns would say real terms, not in physical terms. They're all manners of speech. That's why Phaedrus, I will try to do a little work to translate and explain what Phaedrus is teaching you. Time is a vulgar term if you think about it in, physical terms. It is a poetic entity. All of our terms have a poetic context. You say, well, where is our conversation taking place? Do you want to dismiss the question as Pontius Pilatus does? Do you want to dismiss the question, what is truth? The question that Saint Thomas Aquinas devoted a whole book to? Surely not. Do you want to take refuge in fundamentalism out of despair in the face of evil science? I hope not. Or shall we make an effort to engage with the medievals? By that I mean also the ancients, the Christians, thinkers, to face these deep questions in naivete, in openness of mind, not as Pontius Pilatus, without being afraid of those questions. When confronted with Martin Heidegger, Jacob Klein, young student of Aristotle, came to a conclusion that Heidegger had helped them return to some fundamental questions and to a more original, by original I mean primordial understanding of Aristotle. But he said also that the Aristotle that Heidegger helped him return to made more sense, helped him return to with the intent of demolishing Aristotle, made more sense to him than Heidegger. There's nothing wrong with the question, was ist, aletheia, etc. There's a problem with the way you might be asking the question. But if you take it seriously, more seriously than Heidegger did, then you are more rational than the rationalists of our age. And you will enter into a realm into an alternative that makes more sense than either evil science or dumb fundamentalism. And you will be able to, I'm talking about the real fundamental. Now, you will also be able to escape, and you please take a look at that Science and Religion Revisited article that I recently came up with.
Marco,
you will also be able to overcome the life of your brother-in-law who is living.
Oh, no, you don't know anything about my brother-in-law.
No, I don't.
Let me tell you.
I don't.
You're talking to someone who has been suspicious of science ever since I was a little kid.
Fine.
So
bring it into doubt. I don't have to be suspicious, but bring it into doubt. Yes, but I'm just pointing.
I mean, more than suspicious, even hostile.
I don't want to. I'm not that bad. I'm not so angry.
Well, I'm just letting you know who you're talking to.
That's fine. That's fine.
A lot of what you're saying is not. I mean, I'm happy to listen to it, but it's not appropriately addressed to me. But
I'm talking about alternatives. And there are people, so many of these Christians, and that's why the article I'm referring to, because there's so many of these people who call themselves Christians who live this double life. On the one hand, they accept the materialism of the age, and on the other hand, they want to be impractical.
No, I don't think, if you're talking about my brother-in-law, I don't think you can say that. It's not that it's accepted on the one hand. There are.
Well, that's the picture you gave me, Paul. I don't know.
The fact that he was able to penetrate these engineering secrets, and it has nothing to do with accepting materialism. It has to do with his capacities to understand certain kinds of things and deal with certain kinds of problems. No, I mean there are lots of great scientists who are sincere Christians.
Yes, sincere doesn't really touch me. Huh?
Well, but sincere, it's just, okay. I mean, or if you want to cast doubt on their sincerity and the nature of their Christianity,
I don't mean
no one can stop you.
No. You don't understand me. I hope you'll look at that article, Science and Religion Revisited. I think it speaks clearly enough. I mean that they're having double life, and that is inadequate.
Well, I don't think that applies to my brother-in-law. But,
Look, if you're living a life of a materialist, and then you're
my brother-in-law wasn't doing that. I mean, he was.
What was his job? What was his job?
Look, never mind that. I mean, I'm living the life of a painter. So I'm dealing with pigments. I'm dealing with oil.
No, Paul. No, don't put that down, please.
I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying that everything has this aspect. My brother-in-law was dealing with numbers, and he was
no. That doesn't work.
Of course he was.
No. We're in a completely different ballpark. You could be a painter 2,000 years ago. You couldn't be a nuclear physicist 2,000 years ago.
No, but you could be Archimedes. He was,
That has nothing to do with it. Archimedes.
It does. It has to do with understanding physical principles.
What? And what is that? The laws of physics?
Well,
there's no such thing.
Well, all right, but understanding how things work and what can happen.
No. Archimedes was a mystic. Period. Today we would have to call him a mystic, and so was Pythagoras.
He understood the lever in such a way that he was able to augment the defense of Syracuse. He understood mirrors and lenses and ways that was able to help defend Syracuse.
But it was all in the
yes, but you can't get around that. I mean, he was looking at and understanding what was happening around him. That's
in a certain context.
Well,
look at these people who look at Leonardo and they say he was a proto-modernist.
Look, nobody's more against what's going on and this terrible situation that we're in than I am.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that everyone is caught up in this craziness. I mean, obviously they're hard. I mean, they're the anti-vaxxers. There are people who are not caught up in the craziness. And
not enough to be anti-vax.
Well, the madness. That even though there's a great fad, short skirts. Not every woman wears a short skirt because it's short skirts. And so just because we're in this horrible scientific materialistic hell, not everyone has succumbed to it.
I know. No, this has nothing to do with almost everybody.
Almost everybody, but not everybody.
Well, look, and I will tell you one thing, and let that be a suggestion. That
it's possible, and you yourself are the proof.
Yes,
if you're right about what you're saying, you yourself are the proof. It is possible for the mind to be not in the fad.
Yes, but
because it's possible,
it is not enough to be objecting. It just as romanticism does not escape enlightenment.
There's more than objection. There's more than objection. There's also simply another orientation.
Not enough. The orientation may be good, but we need systematic, heavy-duty homework. Well,
systematic sounds very modern and scientific.
No, that is nonsense. It's systematic work. Thought can be and ought to be systematic.
Well, poetry and system don't exactly go together.
Oh, yeah. The only thing that there isn't is a system of thought, which is a modern invention. But otherwise, there is system of just about everything in the ancient world. Aristotle is systematic in his writing. He is teleological too. But now, we need systematic homework. We need to look at things rigorously, very rigorously, and make a huge effort in order to escape the modern delusion. It is not an easy task, and we risk at every step to underestimate that task and the challenge of stepping out of the modern cave. It is a huge thing. It's not as saying, today I want to be a fundamentalist. I won't believe this. I will oppose the vaccine. Nonsense. And Strauss can help us in this direction because he highlights that Romanticism took that position. and it fed right into it, right into the mechanistic enlightenment. It fed right into it. It thought that it was objecting to it, but it fed right into it. Just as these non-vax will, because they don't have a backbone. Just as Dostoevsky's socialists feed into tyranny, because they don't have the backbone. They don't have the roots. Now, I'm not saying that Dostoevsky has the answers. I'm saying that he was onto something there. He may not have understood what it really takes, but he did understand that you need something more than that. You need roots.
Well,
You need hardcore
Marco,
stuff.
you better get cracking. If it's only this work, this systematic homework that you haven't done yet, that's lacking, you better get busy.
Yeah, I mean, it is a great challenge. Yeah, this is all I'm suggesting, and that the 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 faintest moment of our lives, the the micro world of our lives, which is not the atoms and the molecules, it is the moments, the small moments of our choices, of our moral life, of our moral fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the pivots for a transformation to come out of this cave. And it requires, this work really requires huge effort, but it also requires conditions. And not everybody has that nature. We have to acknowledge that if we are to come out of it. It just it's not enough to watch a video, to be given the right information. And then you say, okay, I'm going to go there, Don Quixote de la Mancha. No. And the medievals knew that. It was not enough. Sure, today it might seem that what they're saying is that it's enough to receive the story, the true mythos of Christianity, to be saved. But all of these terms are to be understood through great effort. And let us not be fooled when the medievals will call us to be lambs. Lambs, yes, but you have to, if you want to really take it seriously, you will have to study hard.
What's the ordinary person to do who's not going to study hard?
Well, I think that the standard classical position is that we have three types of people. And this, incidentally, is as I say this, I recall that I should unearth that paper on the first part of what they call the Analytics of Confucius, because he says the same thing. Wrote it years ago. Three types of people. They're the simple people, the people who don't really study. And they don't even ask the question, what's the distinction between the historical truth and the poetic truth? It's all one and the same thing. Then there are the people who want to be smart. Those are the people who have it, well, who got there halfway, midway, and they think they got there. Those are the worst. And Plato calls them sometimes sophists. Often they are our intellectuals, for the most part, our experts, our scientific experts today. They think they got it all. They're rational. They represent science, episteme, knowledge. And then the alternative, those who are on the track of, well, an investigation that is open to the true Mecca of thought, namely transcendence. When Strauss and my interlocutor recently questioned that. He didn't remember this. But when Strauss refers to the place of philosophers in the Middle Ages, he speaks of mystics. In the Middle Ages, the philosophers were the mystics. In other words, people who call themselves philosophers were not philosophers. They were the sophists, for the most part. That's what we had. And people recognized certain people as mystics, and they were actually the philosophers. So we have a daunting challenge before us, but those are the three arenas, or rather the three paths on the arena, if you like. It can be very simple, but it's not enough to be a fundamentalist. You can't be going to work as a nuclear physicist, and it's not like going to be a painter. That's completely inadequate. That means that you're living in two different worlds. The world that was built to destroy the Christian one, and then the Christian one. It ain't possible. The nuclear physicists, the whole modern apparatus was set up to destroy the Christian world in a way that the Christian world was not really at all meant to destroy the pagan world. It was the moderns the modernists, if you like, who assumed that. They read Christianity as having done that. They read Christianity literally. Clearly, Christianity did not destroy the medieval Christianity did not destroy the pagan world. But the modern world does want to destroy the Christian world. And you can't be both. Hence, my appreciation of your reference to the fundamentalists. If I had to choose between being an evil scientist or a fundamentalist, I would choose the fundamentalist. Yes, but that is a devilish alternative. Because to be a fundamentalist is to be what Strauss calls the orthodox, and who can be an orthodox today? You would have to assume that Spinoza was completely wrong, he says. But who can really believe that there was absolutely nothing that he said that was right? Surely, in some sense, Spinoza, I mean, he was onto something. He was onto something. So if you cannot be an orthodox or a fundamentalist, and you don't want to be the evil scientist, or the proto-evil scientist, or the one who unleashes the monster, Spinoza, then what's the alternative? Hence his return to modern rationalism. Medieval rationalism, right? So I like simple people, but it's almost extremely, almost impossible to be a simple person as in the ancient world or in the medieval world today, because we're bombarded, and everything we do is contaminated. Every word, we live in time, bang. I don't mean to assault you, Paul, when you say that, but it's just that it comes so to speak, natural to us to say that. Have we not been raised with all these propositions in our head? We live in time. Well, as it turns out, if we think about it, hey, have we ever seen that expression among the ancients? Why not? Or the medieval?
No, I never said that. I'll just remind
we
you.
live in time, and then we live in eternity. That's okay. I'm not going to nail you to that cross. I'm just saying that it's in our daily speech.